Look at this science experiment going on right here.
What is up, YouTubers? It's your old buddy Hardworker 12, and today we are test driving a second generation Toyota Mirai. This happens to be a 2021 Mirai XLE, which is kind of the base model, but they all come pretty well equipped. This is an interesting car. I'll give you a brief rundown on it. It's, for all intents and purposes, it's an electric car, but instead of a giant battery pack, it has a hydrogen fuel cell. So we have tanks of hydrogen on board and a hydrogen fuel cell which combines the liquid hydrogen with oxygen to create electricity to send to the batteries. This sounds like a crazy science experiment, and it sort of is, but Toyota has certainly made it work. Driving this car doesn't really feel any different than any other electric car. It's not as fast as a Tesla, but then again, it doesn't really need to be. The second generation, which this is interesting because the first generation Mirai was a front-wheel drive car. This is a rear-wheel drive car, and it is based on the same chassis that they build the Lexus LS on. So it got bigger, it got quieter, it got more refined, and the weight distribution got better. And the interesting thing about that is this car handles way better than you might expect. This car actually is sort of somewhat significant at this point as far as analyzing how it drives and what it is, because Toyota very recently has kind of reversed course on electric cars. For a long time, Toyota didn't seem to be real interested in full-on EVs. Of course, Toyota was a big pioneer in hybrid technology with cars like the Prius, and then, you know, pretty much kind of matriculating throughout the majority of their model lineup, seemingly. So standard hybrids, plug-in hybrids, they've had those for a long time. The fuel cell electric vehicle concept, they've had that for quite a few years as well. This is actually the second generation of the Mirai. So they have been selling the fuel cell cars for, I think, at least since 2015. And the funny thing is, I live in Southern California, and I see these things all the time. It's just kind of a normal car around here to see. You know, for the most part, we see first generation Mirais, but we're starting to see more second generation ones too, as more of them get. Oh, there's, I don't know if you can see it, but there's actually a first generation Mirai parked in that parking lot right there. This is a common car in this area, but my understanding is they only really sell them in Southern California and in the San Francisco Bay Area, because those are the only two parts of the country that really have any kind of significant hydrogen fueling infrastructure to be able to support somebody using one of these as a daily driver. So these are relatively rare in most parts of the country, but common where I am. However, if Toyota decides to get into the electric car market in a big way, you can pretty much bet that whatever electric car they come up with is going to be pretty common as well, because Toyota certainly is in business to sell cars. And we're merging onto the freeway with no trouble at all. Not a particularly fast merge. It's certainly, this is not the fastest electric car that I've ever driven. It's also not the slowest. I would say that it has more than adequate power. You know, people, I think, have kind of come to, some people anyway, have come to see electric cars as these hugely fast vehicles. You know, we've all seen the videos of ludicrous mode on Teslas, and if you've ever driven any Tesla, especially one of the dual motor ones or one of the higher powered ones, they are fast. They are definitely fast cars. But, you know, that's not what everyone's gonna have. I mean, not everybody drives a Dodge Hellcat, right? It's, you know, a Tesla Model S Plaid is the sort of Dodge Hellcat of the electric car world, and that's not what everybody's gonna have. So if electric cars are gonna become more common and more commonly driven by people of, you know, everyday people like you and me, you're not going to have one that does 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds. It's going to do 0 to 60 in 6 or 7 seconds, which is what this does, which is totally fine. This will get you where you need to go. It has a very nice ride on the highway, and acceleration is fine. It's funny how you think about, okay, there's a hydrogen fuel cell in front of me. There are 3 carbon fiber reinforced hydrogen tanks somewhere behind me, and this car feels completely normal to drive. I mean, Toyota, my hat is off to them as far as making something weird work so well and seem so normal. It's not that I don't have nits to pick about this car, because I certainly do. If you watch my review of it, but there's a link in the description if you want to see a review of the features and the space and stuff. The passenger space is very limited. The cargo space is relatively limited. The navigation screen kind of annoys me. One thing I don't think I mentioned in that review, this car has automatic headlights, and I was driving it last night and they just like get confused a lot, and I just turned them off because it was like I was flashing people my brights for no reason. So this car does have its faults, but they're the sort of faults that any kind of car could have. They're not with the powertrain or the chassis. The chassis is actually fantastic. This car drives and handles much, much better than I would have expected, and that really surprised me. I had it on a twisty road the other night, and the handling was just great. It really gives you confidence that you can kind of just put it where you want to put it. And it's very, very nice to drive. Brakes are just fine. Into the curve, no problem at all. Only issue is my phone is flopping around. One annoying thing about this car is it does have wireless charging as a standard feature. That's not annoying. The annoying part about it is where they put it, which is kind of in the middle of the center console. Your phone just sort of sits on top of the wireless charging piece. So if you go around a curve or make a right-hand turn, it's possible that your phone could become dislodged from the wireless charging thing, which is kind of annoying. But, you know, not a huge deal. Not a deal breaker, let's say. Driving this car actually kind of makes me excited about Toyota getting into the electric car space. I like electric cars. A lot of kind of people who consider themselves car people have a weird mental block when it comes to EVs. And, you know, yeah, would I prefer a gasoline V8 or V12? Yeah, sure I would. I'm not going to lie about that. But the fact of the matter is that those just kind of aren't sustainable to keep driving those around. And, you know, it's debatable as to, whoa, there's more space than I thought there. I suppose it's debatable as to how good or bad electric cars are for the environment, but I feel like as time progresses, it's becoming clear that, you know, there are ecological benefits to driving an electric car, and there's also car benefits to driving an electric car. I mean, they're just kind of cool. You know, they make different kind of noises and feels like you're driving a spaceship. Some of them are pretty fast, but even though this one, which is certainly not one of the faster EVs, FC EVs, whatever, well, it probably is one of the faster FC EVs, but they're kind of fun to drive. And the engineering, you can really feel that this car is well engineered. You know, there's some things that it could do better, but just as far as the way the chassis is set up, the handling, the braking, the acceleration, it's very nice to drive, period. Not very nice to drive for a Toyota, not very nice to drive for an electric car. It's a very nice car to drive, and that's probably the highest praise that I can pay it. Because Toyotas, and in a lot of cases electric cars, neither of those categories are known to be nice to drive, but this one is, and it feels like a mature product, like they've been working on it, thinking about it. And you know, if they keep going and develop new chassis and new technologies to make kind of future EV models, come on folks, we can cross the road, even better than this one, and improve on some of the faults that this car has as far as the passenger room and the cargo room. Hey, you know, Toyota, they're obviously a huge player in the car business, and they are going to be a huge player in the EV business if that's what they decide to be. And that might be a good thing for all of us, because we could get some real nice cars out of it, and we could get some increased competition to kind of force everybody to up their game. And that's a good thing for us as consumers, and hopefully for us as human beings. And this is sort of a relaxing car to drive. If I had a little bit more knee room, I would be extremely relaxed. But a good electric car in general, you know, they're smooth, they're quiet. It's a nice car to drive. I don't know if you out there watching in YouTube world will ever get the chance to drive one, because they are kind of only available at limited locations. I think right now they're only selling these in California. They might also be selling them in Hawaii, but they just don't have the hydrogen fueling stations for these, unfortunately. But at some point in the not too distant future, if Toyota kind of sticks with their all-in strategy for electric vehicles, you might be able to drive something very similar to this that just has a big battery pack instead of the hydrogen fuel cell technology. I guess one advantage of the hydrogen fuel cell thing is it is a few hundred pounds lighter than it would be if it was a full-on EV. So that would be a drawback. It would be heavier if it had all those batteries. But then again, anybody has a outlet to plug it into, and I guess not everybody has a hydrogen filling station nearby, so you'd at least be able to buy it. All right, so I just parked it. So what we are gonna do is we're gonna shut her off, because one thing I noticed sitting in the garage last night when I drove it, when I turned it off, it made a bunch of interesting beeps and boops and squeaks and squawks. So let's see what it does here. I don't know if you can hear that, but we got a little bit of fan noise. Okay, the fan seems to have shut itself off somehow. Now we got quiet. Maybe it's not going to do as much interesting stuff as it did last night. Yeah, it's funny. There are little things going on. I don't know if the camera's microphone is going to be picking them up. but you can hear that it's like shutting down, you know, shutting something down with the hydrogen tanks. A couple of noises from the rear, which is where the hydrogen storage tanks are, and then a couple of noises from the front where the fuel cell actually is. It's still doing stuff. That's so funny. I hope the camera's picking this up. Well, anyway, that would be my test drive of the Toyota Mirai. If you didn't watch my review of it yet, there'll be a link somewhere on the screen where you can check that out. And please like and subscribe if you liked the video. Thanks so much for watching, and have yourself a wonderful day. Bye-bye.